يا منزل الآيات والفرقان بيني وبينك حرمة القرآن اشرح به صدري لمعرفة الهدى واعصم به قلبي من الشيطان.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين نبينا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم. أما بعد. We continue with our lecture or series of lectures pertaining to the identity crisis for young Muslims. For the young Muslims, the identity crisis they're going through. Again, to do a recap of what we covered yesterday, we talked about what is the definition of an identity crisis. And we talked about why it's important for us to be discussing this topic. And then we talked about what are some of the contributing factors, what causes for young people or adults to go through this crisis itself, and why it's a phenomenon in our time. Amongst the things we mentioned was that the definition of this is a conflict that the young people, young Muslims, are going through in terms of the internal conflict that they're going through within themselves, or whether they should be assuming the identity of an ideal Muslim or American Muslim. They live in a society which is promoting all types of ideologies and propagandas and agendas. So therefore, it's easy for the person to lose themselves in this type of environment. We talked about this and the importance of why we need to understand this topic in order for our youth to have a strong confidence in who they are and not have to hide that the fact that they're Muslims when they go to school or when they're going to out in public or other places. That they should be proud of who they are. They should be proud of who they are. And we talked about some of the root causes of why this crisis happens, right? Why it happens. And we say the reason why an identity crisis emerges from whether it's a young Muslim or whether it's a grown adult. We mentioned how both cases they suffer this problem, this issue, right? And we say that the identity crisis emerges as a tool to adopt cultural values for survival. Why do we say for survival? Because you brought your young children into a multicultural environment, society, where Islam is not predominant. So what happens? There's other ideologies, and Islam is being portrayed in a negative picture. So there's discrimination already. So this young person, young Muslim, when he goes to school, his friends, what do they hear about Islam? That they're terrorists, or they're this source of people, or this or that. So they're hearing negative all the time. So in order to fit in and not feel some type of way or not feel out of place, it's natural for the person to try to adopt. So what they do, they're trying to adopt. So what happens? That adoption itself, they end up compromising on their religion to a certain degree. The reason why they're adopting this is for survival. That's why we say this is the reason why identity crisis happens to begin with. Because they're trying to survive. They're trying to fit in this environment. We're on the same page. So, among the root causes of these issues we mentioned was lack of ilm, lack of knowledge. Because if this young Muslim person understands what it means to be an ideal Muslim, what are some of the core values of a Muslim, how a Muslim is supposed to be, knowing to appreciate to appreciate the blessing of Islam, do you think this person is going to care what anybody else says? No, because his foundation is very, very strong. His usul are very strong. So therefore, he does nothing except to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does not care what other people say about him or what they think, what their opinions are. So he will not try to fit in. Understood? This person, I'm talking to you, youth as well. Right? So you don't have to try to fit into society. Because I mentioned yesterday, in the Quran we have many examples. People who are being prosecuted for the fact that they say they were Muslims. وَمَا تَنْقِمُ مِنَّا إِلَّا أَنْ آمَنَّا بِآيَاتِ رَبِّنَا لَمَّا جَاءَتْنَا. Fir'aun, when he threatened to physically harm them, decapitate them, and then crucify them. Why? Because they believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا نَقَمُ مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا أَنْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated in Surah Al-Buruj, that these believers, why were they being thrown in the fire, in the ditch that these kuffar have dug? The reason why they were being punished for it was for the fact that they believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what kept those people firm upon their religion? What kept them firm? What was it that made them not surrender who they were? What made them stay firm? And the young youth who were in Surah Al-Kahf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Ashab al-Kahf. When the society called them to what? All types of sins such as kufr and all of the sorts. What did they say? They rejected all of that, and rather they said, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they stayed firm upon their belief. And when that happened, Allah's aid came to them. So when the young youth, he stands his ground, knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be with him, that he understands his foundations, it's easier for him to reject all these types of ideologies and reject the community that's calling them to all sorts of disbelief and issues. Now, because of Islamic upbringing, because of knowledge, they don't understand Islam, so they don't know the value of Islam. So when they come and grow up in this type of environment, what happens? They're balancing things, as we mentioned yesterday, right? They're balancing things to see, okay, if I'm practicing, what values do I get? What's the benefits of it? And they see on the other hand what? We mentioned what? There are many contributing factors to this person changing their culture. You have social media. You have what? The wider community, right? You go to school everywhere. They're seeing their people their age following the trends and all sorts of things. This is what we called what do we call this yesterday? Pressure, right? Whether it's peer pressure, societal pressure, it doesn't matter. Whether that pressure is directly or indirectly, it doesn't matter. If you come to the masjid and you have a certain type of hairstyle and everybody just looks at you strangely and then turns around, khalas. And the person, he sees this. Does he feel pressure, yes or no? Of course. You're pressuring this person to feel some type of discomfort. To feel some type of discomfort. Ya ikhwa, these people, these young youth already gain enough of that at school and on social media. What happens to your child when he has full access to the internet and he sees people his age enjoying life, having these things and that? What's going to happen to you? He's going to say, I wish that guy was my father, right? I wish that person, I wish I was related to that person. I wish I was as rich as that person. They start losing confidence within themselves. And this causes conflict within the young person. Are we clear? And then you find them trying to have unrealistic goals. I want to be in the NFL or in the NBA. You've not worked hard enough from the beginning and you want to be drafted, just like that. Give yourself realistic goals. What is something that you're capable of doing? Don't follow the hype, all right? So the main reason of why identity crisis happens is because of lack of knowledge, not understanding who you are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He warns us from these types of things. لا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. Don't be like those who forgot about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah, He calls them to forget about themselves. They forgot about the akhirah. They forgot about that which benefits them in their religion, that which benefits them, that which brings them salvation, the guidance. They forgot about all of those things. You're going to forget about who you are. All right? Because young guys, when you're watching or seeing all these trends going on, your heart's going to start deviating towards it. So it's a very, very dangerous matter. The next issue we said was a contributing factor to identity crisis of a young Muslim was the fact that you're an immigrant. You came here to this land, to a different land where, what? Your culture is not the predominant one. So you already have, your family wants to have you what? One culture. They want you to have one culture. And the community and society you live in wants you to have a different culture. So now there's a clash of what? Cultures. And we say as a parent, you shouldn't try to enforce the culture on this young person. You have to understand and live with the fact that this child is not going to adopt 100% of your culture, but rather try to compromise. Try to help him understand why your culture is more valuable. What are the core principles that separate it from the culture here? And what are the dangers of the culture here? Because we live in a very dangerous environment, right? We talked about this yesterday. Another thing, because what happens when the young person lives in this type of environment is cultural assimilation. The predominant culture takes over the one that's not. So this was happening to the young people. This causes identity crisis for young youth and it emerges. Another one, an issue was the social media influence. So the media exposes our young youth into a society that has a variety of viewpoints, and they start questioning their own core values, right? And they start questioning their own core values. Why? Because of all the stuff, filth and garbage they're getting from social media. They're being influenced into all of these things, right? And these Western norms and practices are being imposed by society. And these young people, they're divided between two traditions and two civilizations. If we teach our young youth about Islamic upbringing and how a Muslim is supposed to be, how an ideal Muslim is supposed to be, we ask Allah to forgive us for our shortcomings, then alhamdulillah, we help this young person at least stand their ground when they go to school, stand their ground when they go to society, that they're able to fight against all of these things. Peer pressure and negative depictions of Islam, it can lead to uncertainty for the person. It can lead to uncertainty. It can cause self-doubt. The person having doubt in their own deen. Have we not seen the tremendous amount of young Muslims leaving the religion? Many youth are leaving the religion. For what reason? There's uncertainty now. When your child has access to the internet without control, without borders, what happens? He sees everything. Now, even among the adults, you have those who are coming up to us and saying, why is everything haram? Why is everything haram? What do you mean, why is everything haram? The halal is much wider than that, the bubble that has the haram things. But because this bubble has been magnified in your eyes due to the environment you live in, all you see is nothing but these things. So the halal becomes narrow to you. Subhanallah. To the point where people start earning haram incomes. They're like, there's no such thing as a halal income. We live in America. Everybody's going through riba. What's the point? What's haram is haram. What's haram is haram. That's the Sharia. Even if the entire world decides to earn haram income, that does not mean and justify for the fact that you have to. Does not justify the fact that you're doing it. No. Another contributing factor, what we said, was the pressure, peer pressure or societal pressure, whether from friends or the media, whether from family, whether it's directly or indirectly, it doesn't matter. There's pressure out there. So this causes young youths to do what? To lose themselves and to have a conflict within themselves. Are you a Muslim or are you not a Muslim? And it's going to be uncertainty that happens. And we mentioned the consequences of these things that are happening to them. Again, today we're supposed to talk about the solution to these problems. We're doing a recap of yesterday. All right? What are some of the consequences of when an identity crisis happens to a youth? What are some of the consequences that happens? Who can tell us? What's the first thing we mentioned that happens? They say they have what? Mental issues, right? There's going to be self-doubt, which leads to low self-esteem, worry, sadness, which promotes individuals to do what? To withdraw from the Muslim community. It becomes difficult. Now shaitan has access to this person. He can do whatever he wants. Why? Because the person is already doubting himself. He's doubting himself. This young person is doubting himself now. He's doubting the religion. What's causing this? Low self-esteem. He's adopting the akhlaq and the adab, all these things. The person, he ends up doubting his own self. Because the person, he attains his akhlaq from where? The people he's around. The time he lives in, the people he's around. As the poet said, "Ala inna akhlaq al-fata ish kazamanihi." Indeed, the manners of the young person is his time. The time, the people he's around, and all that, that's how his akhlaq becomes. If there are people who are disobedient to their parents, without a doubt, this person is going to be disobedient to his parents. If a person is somebody who's practicing, they practice. Wallahi alhamd. So again, amongst the consequences of what's it called, identity crisis among youths is mental issues. How many cases we see? A 12-year-old saying, I'm depressed. 13-year-old, I went to the hospital, I have depression, anxiety, all these problems. Why? Lack of confidence. Go out of this country and overseas and see what happens. You think people your age, or even the adults, have time for depression, anxiety, and all these type of problems? They don't. People are worried about bringing food to the table. They don't have time for these things because they know who they are. What's the predominant culture? It's a culture that builds what? The confidence of who you are. Majority is being Muslim. Khalas, they're Muslim. When do you have time for all these other problems? And Islam has taught you a way to cope with these things. Because of lack of coping mechanisms, we're going through many youth are going through a lot of problems. They don't know how to cope with it. They don't know how to cope with these things. So what happens? They end up going through the wrong channels and coping with these things. So this person, when he goes through all these mental issues, what happens? He's going to think as though he does not fit into this community whatsoever. He sees all these things as being portrayed about Islam. I remember what we said yesterday. This young person, he's already been given an image of what? Of what Islam is. 6, maybe 5 days he's at school. A lot of information is being poured to his brain. And then on top of that, add the hours he's on screen time on his phone that he's watching on TikTok, all these things. And he's learning manners, religion, and many things from these things. And then he's with you throughout the time. So if the parent does not have a strong foundation, that's a problem. That's a problem. Another issue, a consequence that results from identity crisis is cultural clash. Tensions within family are going to start coming up, within communities. They arise as a result of what? Confrontation between traditional values and modern values. How many youth we spoke to and they're saying, our parents, their culture is just backwards thinking. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not hip, he's not modern. He doesn't know what's going on. How many youths we say that they think they're smarter than the parent? At a certain age, yes, this child, you can control him, you can tell him what to do, hakada. When they reach a certain age, they're no longer in your hands. They're in the hands of their best friends and their friends and hakada. They click their little circle. The best thing you can do is make sure they have the proper circle, proper friends. So what happens? Cultural clash happens when these individuals starts doubting himself and not knowing how to, what's his culture, what are his values, all these things. What is his morals? So therefore, again, that's one of the consequences. Another consequence that's actually something that started developing is people, they start practicing and they end up leaving the religion. Why? Because of uncertainty. Because the person, he experiences mental discomfort and uneasy estrangement within the community. And he eventually stops practicing Islam. He's feeling uneasy when he's with his friends, non-Muslim friends. He's not comfortable talking about Islam. He's not comfortable showing them that he's a Muslim. They're asking, you're a Muslim? It's like, yeah, but I'm not like the other Muslims. I'm Muslim, but I'm not that practicing. Why? Some of them, they hide the fact that they're Muslim. Are you Muslim? It's like, nah, I'm not. Why? Just to get what? Validation from your friends, from your community. So the society does not treat you in a different way. That is a weakness. And you have to break that weakness. You have to get stronger than that. And we're going to talk about how we're going to do that. Now, the last point we mentioned yesterday, again, this is not all the causes of the identity crisis, because there are many contributing factors, but we only mentioned a few, right? The last one we mentioned was radicalization. What happens when the person feels alienated or detached from the community? The young people, what do they feel? They become vulnerable to radical ideas, radical groups and organizations. They provide them what? Comfort. They provide them what? A sense of belonging to a community, to a group of people. And this is where a lot of our problems with drugs, gang violences, and all these issues, they come from this point right here. Because of the lack of confidence that this child has, because of lack of what? Self-esteem, high self-esteem, lack of confidence, lack of what? Proper upbringing and strong morals and values, what happens? This person is vulnerable to being tempted into joining groups. Well, how do you think these ISIS and Khawarij, all these groups, they attain followers? How do you think they confuse these young people? Who do they target? The one who's not educated properly in the religion. The one who community has rejected. or he does not have a sense of belonging to a community. So what happens? They convince him, you're part of the family, go do this, go do that. Khalas, he blows an entire block up, killing himself. And these people are shayateen. Their own children, they're safe, but he's sending other people's children. So this is one of the main core reasons why a lot of our youth, they end up joining gangs and stuff like that. Why? Because this gang made them feel as though they have a place they belong. It made them feel comfortable. Are we clear? So for that reason, they join these things. Why does your child have to go through that? Why can you not give them that comfort at the house? Why is the community not providing that at the masjid? These are some of the solutions to this issue right here. That sense of belonging. The religion teaches that the Muslims are the brothers, right? إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. They're brothers. They're building blocks to one another. We strengthen one another. So that bond of brotherhood is supposed to be strong. It's supposed to be built where? In the community, in the masjid. But we're sleeping on that. So when there's no sense of belonging to a community, to a culture, to something, these young children, they're vulnerable to all types of evil. Are we clear on this? So this was the birthplace of all these extreme groups, whose major targets are uneducated people seeking a sense of purpose or belonging. So then what happens? They join gangs, they join all types of things. When they see that those who are practicing the religion, who are learning the deen, who are at the masajid, they're now very welcoming. Whenever this person comes to the masjid, he does not feel comfortable. Why? There's discomfort within the community. Why? Because this person is looking at him differently. That one, nobody's welcoming him. Nobody's talking to him. The youth his age, these ones are memorizing Quran. So there's a segregation right there. Though the good ones and the khasaras, these ones, they're not students of knowledge. Leave them alone. That's a cause for them to get further away from the masjid. Are we clear? So the person, you have to fix these issues. We're shedding light into these matters so we can understand them and we can remedy these problems. Are we clear? So the person, when he comes to the masjid, what happens? He does not feel comfortable. So who welcomes him? Best believe that shaitan and his soldiers, they're going to welcome him properly, very welcome, proper welcome. He's going to say, you should try these drugs, you should try this, you should. And they're not pleased with you until you try it. And then what happens? The young person is addicted to that drug. He's going to use it until his body builds a resistance to that. And then he goes to the next step. Take a pill. He's going to continue to do that. If he doesn't overdose and die on it, he's going to continue to do that. And what happens? Then you have heroin and this and that until they go to the mother of all evil, which is alcohol. They stay there. And sometimes the parents, they do not know how to deal with this because they never went through this issue. In your back home, your culture, what happened? Or when your time when you're growing up, you did not have social media. If you went through half the things these youth are going through, you would lose your mind. But they went through a lot of problems. You didn't have these problems as a parent. You didn't have these problems. So now when these issues happen, you don't know how to deal with it. Some people, they try to deal with it the traditional way. As-Salaamah. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. Because you have to fix the root cause of this issue. The root cause of this issue, you have to fix it. Are we clear? Now, we understand these things. And some people might say, yeah, Ustad, you're talking about problems. Okay, what are the solutions? Talk about the solutions now. We say that the first thing is lack of what? Knowledge, right? So the solution to that is to do what? For you to seek knowledge, to understand Islam, to learn about the history of Islam. What did Islam go through? Do you understand the religion that you have and the favor that Allah gave you? People bled for it. People bled for it. It went through a heavy, many phases just to come to you today. It went through Allah, the religion. we take, then see if the person does not understand history, Islamic history, and does not know about it, it's easy for the person to take something for granted if they don't know about it. If you don't know the value of Islam, you're going to take it for granted without a doubt. So as youth, what do you have to do? Learn about your religion. Have a high ambition to learn the deen, to understand Islam, to understand the religion, so that you can appreciate the ni'mah that you have. Amongst the things that amazed me was the fact that there's a young youth who was being incarcerated for a very long time. And then he came out of, the prison, and there was no housing or no welcoming committee or a re-entry for him here in Columbus. Those who were welcoming him back to society was a church and their organization, right? A church and their organization. And they told him that, we know you're a Muslim. We know you're a Muslim. So if you want us to help you, you have to leave your religion and join us. Even though this person, according to the eyes of many people, that he's the lowest of the low, lowest of society, that he's a criminal, وكذا. But how's his iman at that point? This person, he understands the value of Islam, so what did he say? He rejected, because they were going to give him what? A place to sleep, food to eat, train him for programs and get him a job. But he refused all of that. These are basic needs that he needed, but he denied all of those things. Why? He did not want to leave Islam. He did not want to lose his iman. This is somebody who understands the value of religion. Because everybody makes mistakes, all human beings. We're bound to fall short. But this person, he stood his ground. So you have to build that sense or that confidence within your children. And the best way for you to do that is to teach them about Islam. What are the virtues of Islam? Why is this child, why do you want your kid to continue being a Muslim? What are the values of being a Muslim? What does he benefit from being a Muslim? Worldly and the hereafter. Talk to him, help him understand this. Are we clear? Because the more they seek knowledge, the more they have a deep understanding who the Creator is. How to worship Him properly. What are the values of Islam? Appreciating the blessing of Islam. Understanding that those before you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the examples in the Quran. That when their society called them to shirk and kufr and all types of things, they stood their ground and they said that we're free from what? From what you worship. We're free from what you worship. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لِأَبِيهِ وَقَوْمِهِ إِنَّنِي بَرَأٌ مِّمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ. Allah, He mentioned this verse in the Quran. When Ibrahim, and remember a time when Ibrahim said to his father and to his people that I am free from that which you worship besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am free from that which you worship. Where is a person going to gain this confidence from? Understanding who you are. Understanding Islam, understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are we clear? They rejected all these things. Another point is for the person to have a good role model. And this is something a lot of our youth are missing. Having a good role model, and is a Muslim role model. So what happens? This person, he looks after this person, takes the advice of this role model, and he sees. And this is something, a solution that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned for us in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned it in the Quran. That we have the best example in who? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ قَدْ كَانَتْ لَكُمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ في إبراهيم والذين آمنوا معه إذ قالوا لقومهم إنا براء منكم ومما تعبدون من دون الله كفرنا بكم. Subhanallah. Allah, He said, indeed, in Prophet Ibrahim, you have a good example in Prophet Ibrahim and those who believe. What are they a good example for you? And Allah mentions to you that they rejected what? Kufr. They rejected their communities, their societies. They rejected them. And they stood their ground. They stood their ground. This was an example for us. It's a good example for us. Ibrahim alayhi salam. All these qisas that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran of how they stood their ground. These are all examples, role models for us. And that's the best role model for us, honestly. Looking up to the prophets. But if we don't seek the knowledge and we don't understand these role models in the Islamic community, what happens? We break apart. We break apart. Are we clear? Now, helping this young person understand the importance of Islamic brotherhood or sisterhood and building strong bonds within the Muslim communities, knowing that they have a sense of belonging to a community, is amongst the ways to remedy this issue. Because if you have a community that you belong to, why is this person going to seek to go to another community, join another people? No, he already has that sense of belonging somewhere. He belongs somewhere. He doesn't need to go look elsewhere. He doesn't. He's confident in that which he believes. He's confident in that who he is, and he's confident in what? In the community he's in, and in the role models that the person has. So there's no need for them to go look for anything else. Are we clear on this? Walillahi alhamd. This is amongst the practical ways to remedy this issue. Coming to the masjid, and the masjid was built for this. What happens when we come to the salah, the congregation? What is it built? A sense of what? Community, praying together. This causes people to meet, get to know each other. They pray together. When a person is within the community and he prays in the masjid for a long time, if he goes missing for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days or some time, is his absence noticed, yes or no? Of course. Where is this individual? Why? Because he already belongs to a community. Keep an eye on that person. They look after, they call that person, Akhi, Habibina, where you at? Where are you? What happened? Is everything alright? You check up. This is a community. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He always wants us to stay united. Are we clear? And establishing proper role models. So this person, the young people, especially young people, I want the parents to pay very close attention to this. The parents, the teachers, the community leaders, the people responsible in the masjid, every single individual, this point is key, is very important. The fact that your youth or your child, at that moment that you have influence on that child, you have to teach him how to make money properly without going through haram avenues. What happens is they want to make money, and this is normal. This is human being, right? So it's adi. There's no problem with that. But you have to teach them what are the proper channels of attaining this. Teaching them skill sets. Having mentors. Teaching them the skill sets they need in order for them to succeed, so that they don't have to look at one avenue of how their peers are making money. Because what does he see on social media? Oh, his friends, people his age, they're driving a Lexus, or they're driving this or that, and they have a Rolex, they have this, they have all these things. How are they making it? He's selling on the streets. He's stealing, he's doing this, he's doing that. And trust me, they have made the haram look so much appealing. It's in the music, it's in the shows, the movies, in everything. So we have to be careful with those things. Making sure that these young people have a proper channel of attaining a rizq that's halal. Instilling within them the core principles that the rizq is maqsoom and that it's maktub. That you have to only go through halal channels, otherwise you're going to be asked about on the day of judgment. Allah distributed this wealth, this rizq between His servants. And it's maktub. It's written. Whether you attain it from halal or haram, you're not going to attain a cent over that which has already been written down for you before you were born. Before, in the qadr, you have to believe in it. Everything was written down for you. Your wealth, how much you're going to amass, how much you're going to make. Right? The angel wrote down what? الرزق. كسب رزقه إيش؟ نعم. And his time. What is going to be? شقي. سعيد. Everything has been written down for this person. Subhanallah. So this is a problem we have to address, making them understand that if you want the rizq, first you have to place your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And understand you have to go and seek this rizq. Don't sit there and wait for it to come to you. I'm talking to the youth. Don't sit there waiting for it to come to you. It doesn't work like that. But rather you have to come with action. Go seek it. Do what you need to do in order to come with the asbab. Making sure you stay away from the haram avenues. Even though it became what? Tempting. Why? Because of the social media. Because of all these things. During my travels, I met with one of the youth overseas. I was speaking to him because we came again to the Umrah wa hakada. As mentioned, in his country, those who are becoming wealthy, people his age, they were going through one avenue in becoming wealthy. And that was doing magic. Sihr. That the jinn promised them this and that and that, so long as they went and they killed somebody or did this or did that. So young people, young boys, young girls were being abducted, killed. Why? Just so that they can get in contract with the shayateen, so they can become rich that way. This is something that's happening. At first I couldn't believe what he was saying to me. Then he starts showing me, look at this. Those who did this, they sat out in front of the camera and they told everybody step by step what to do. Subhanallah, step by step what to do. As-Salaamah. So this is a problem that's also growing. So the young person, amongst the solutions to this identity crisis, is instilling a strong sense of a Muslim identity by making sure they understand the Islamic values and the ethics, the teaching, the practicing. All of these things, they help this person build who they are, as we mentioned. If you do not know what an ideal Muslim is and how he's supposed to behave, how he's supposed to walk, what he's supposed to dress like, all these things you don't know, this person doesn't know, then how do you expect him to be? He doesn't know what a Muslim is supposed to be. He doesn't know what Islam is. And I encourage even the teachers to not make the classes as though they are echo chambers. Oh, you grab this text, Islam is this and that. And the person memorizes the text. Help them understand why this text is important, why is learning it. Break it down to them. Break it down to them. Because this person, this content you're giving him, he wants to understand what is he going to benefit from learning this right now. But if you pressure this person, go to the madrasa, do this, and pressure him, don't be shocked tomorrow if they stop practicing, because you became a contributing factor to that itself. Are we clear? Encouraging these young people to have a self-reflection and accountability, making sure that they understand, they build their confidence, they reflect on who they are. Every time you keep reminding them, you're a Muslim, mashallah, kada. Talk about the seerah of the prophets, the stories of the prophets, and the seerah of Prophet ﷺ, and the Sahaba, and the role models of the Muslims, what they have accomplished, who they were, how every nation stood their ground. Those who were righteous, they stood their ground. The person, he becomes proud of what? Of being a Muslim. So you build this child's confidence to be proud to be a Muslim and not to even hide it. Not to hide it anymore, but rather to be a Muslim who's confident that he's a Muslim. And when his friends say, let's go do some drugs, or let's go here, let's go join the gang, he's like, no, absolutely not. amongst the things that was very strange for me, even growing up here, was the fact that the non-Muslims I was going to school, high school with, respected the fact that I was a Muslim. They knew I was not going to lie, I was not going to cheat, I was not going to drink alcohol, I was not going to have a girlfriend or hakada. So they would refrain from asking me any of these things. Who was the one that was asking me these things the most? The Muslim youth. Why? Because this person who's doing these things, doing these evils, he wants you to become like him. Because deep inside it gives him a sense of what? Satisfaction. Oh, I'm not alone. This guy, he thinks he's better than me. Khalas, get him. That's it. Shaitan is using him. But this kafir person, they would not tempt whatsoever. They wouldn't. They would do their thing, they look at me like, yeah, this guy's a Muslim. Why? Because you have to have your identity as a Muslim. Why do you have to hide it? Why do you have to hide it? How many times youth tell me, I'm at work and they ask me, you're a Muslim, and it's very uncomfortable for me to say yes. This is what your children are going through. You as a parent would feel uncomfortable in that situation where there's many people who hate Islam who you're working with, who hate Islam that you around. For you to say, I'm a Muslim, to be proud with your chest, you as adults will be having issues with this. And you want your children to go to an education system and learn in this environment. But the key thing is the fact that we have to focus and work hard on attaining knowledge. On attaining knowledge, regardless of how old you are, you have to seek knowledge. Because there are two things, and we mentioned this before, two avenues a person becomes misguided, and that is through doubts and the desires. So the doubts in the person, a lot of youth are getting doubts and uncertainty because of lack of knowledge. So we have to work hard on making sure we strengthen our youth and our community through knowledge, teaching them the theory and the practical aspect of things. The issue is not that we 100% lack in the knowledge, but honestly, we lack in applying these things. Are we clear on this? Now, inshallah, we'll conclude here bi'idhnillah as the time of the salah has entered. Inshallah, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to continue talking about certain topics like as this, to make sure that we strengthen ourselves from every avenue, every aspect. We have to honestly work hard in making sure that these young people understand the Islamic history, understand who the companions were, understand who the tabi'een were, what about tabi'een, who were the four imams, who were the leaders, and what are the stages Islam has gone through to reach where it's at today. What was the highest peak of Islam? What happened? How did we come back down here? What happened? So when the person understands history, he won't be tempted to repeat the same mistake again. But rather now he knows what happened. He knows what happened. So therefore, it's easier for this Muslim person to understand. بارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خيرا وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. And inshallah we'll have pizza in the back بإذن الله after the salah prayer for those who are volunteering to set up food for everybody else to eat. Share the reward inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا. There's tremendous reward in, again, amongst the ways, and I forgot to mention, is when you come to the community and you do activities together, it builds what? That sense of belonging to a community. And each and every one of you has a responsibility in the community. The masjid is not the responsibility of only those who are in the administration and those who work here. No, but rather it belongs to all of you guys. And everybody has to fill that gap. The first night we had pizza over here in the back. Walillah alhamd. There were people whom I have not seen before. They ate They clean up after themselves. Walillah alhamd, I was happy. Because majority of the time, what do? We eat it and we leave. This is the house of Allah. We have to be respectful of it. Make sure we're safeguarding the rules and the regulations, especially when we're parking outside. A lot of complaints are coming when we're parking outside. The masjid has rules and regulations, ya ikhwah. They're there to control us from making what? Chaos. Another issue is when we come into the masjid, there's a reason why we have shelves for the shoes. So barakallahu fikum, ya ikhwah. Make sure we adhere to the rules and regulations of the masjid and not give the administration a difficult time. If you were in their shoes, you'd be complaining about this all the time. So barakallahu fikum, jazakumullah khairan. And again, I apologize, we started the class late. We had more time, but qaddarullah ma sha'a fa'al. Inshallah, we will see if we're able to continue these lectures. But again, we will have our classes on Wednesdays and Thursday nights, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum.